Today marks 1 month of me owning my 2018 Subaru Crosstrek, and this is its first snowfall. What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Today we're talking nothing but Crosstrek. I've owned this car for about a month. I've done a couple modifications to it and I've been getting a ton of questions. I figured the best way to do this would just be to give you my impressions of the car itself and then go through every modification that I did in the order that I put them on the car. This will be my first time driving it in the snow, and while it's not really laying on the roads, it should still be pretty fun, so let's go for a cruise. Alright, first things first, if you're going to take away anything from this video, you probably want to know, what do I think about the 2018 Crosstrek in its stock form? I can honestly say that I really do love this car. I love the way it looks, I love the way it drives, the fuel economy, the room. Everything about this car just suits my lifestyle very, very well, and I'm happy with the purchase. I bought this car as a daily driver because my other car is a 2015 STI. There's nothing wrong with dailying a car like that, however, the gas prices did add up after a while. I was putting a ton of miles on the car because I drive so much recently, and I've also been doing a lot of stuff that would just be easier if I had more room to transport stuff around. The Crosstrek solves all the problems that I had with daily driving my STI. The STI is low and it's uncomfortable on long road trips. This thing has 8.7 inches of ground clearance when it's stock, and compared to the STI, this thing rides like I'm sitting on a cloud. The seats are really comfortable, the bolsters aren't squeezing you really tight. This is the premium model, so I actually really do like the cloth interior. I don't have to worry about scratching it up like I do the leather in the STI. So I just crossed 2,000 miles in the first month of owning it. You can tell I drive a lot, and the experience so far has been great. It's really comfortable. Then there's the gas mileage. The STI, with back road driving like I'm doing right now, highway driving, combined you can kind of see around 20 to 24, 25. It really depends on how you're driving. The Crosstrek, on the other hand, you're going to be seeing around 26 to 32-ish on some long highway drives. Those numbers did go down when I changed the wheel and tire setup, but I'll get to that in a second. The Crosstrek takes regular gas where the STI took premium, so it's definitely cheaper, getting better miles per gallon. Win-win. And then there's the room in this thing. I'm always traveling with all my camera gear and guns and targets, and just the back of my STI was always packed with stuff. While the interior space on this is the same as the Impreza, the seats fold down and it's got a ton more room than my STI. There's a ton of room for activities back there. I could basically pack up all the essential things that I need in life and just go drive around the country. And speaking of that, that's a good idea, so I might keep that in mind for future videos. Now, one of the biggest complaints that you will hear people say about this car is that it is completely underpowered. Yes, the car is kind of slow, but it's making a little bit more power than the previous year. But you have to remember, this car was built for a purpose, and its purpose was definitely not to go fast. This car was made to be comfortable, to get good fuel economy, and then to have enough room in the back to bring stuff along on whatever adventures you're going on. Now, the thing is, people who complain about this car being too slow probably don't own one. You'll see a lot of people doing reviews where they get a car brand new from Subaru, has less than 500 miles on it, and it's been driven by other reviewers off-road and in situations where the car probably isn't going to be very often. Now, the reason that kind of skews the majority opinion on this car is because once you get this thing in a situation where you're going to be driving it how you are every single day, the computer is going to learn your driving habits. One of the biggest things that I noticed, and I really haven't heard anyone else talk about this, is that once you get this car through a break-in period, which pretty much all new cars have, somewhere between like 500 and 1,000 miles, the personality of this car changed completely. I noticed a change in my STI after the break-in period, noticeably more power, better torque. It just feels better when you're driving the car. The Crosstrek was even more noticeable. Somewhere between like 500 and 750 miles in this car, the computer must have picked up on my driving habits, or the rings must have been seated better, because it completely changed. If I'm driving on the interstate doing 60, 65 miles an hour, I can pass someone up to about 80 miles an hour, no problem at all. Even going up hills, I found myself passing cars and then looking down at my speedometer, and I'm doing 75 miles an hour up a hill. Acceleration from a dead stop. I mean, you're not doing 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds like the STI, but it's definitely no slouch. So stock Subaru Crosstrek, would I buy it again? As of now, I'm saying yeah. Now let's move on to the modifications. One of the first things that I did was get the front windows tinted to match the rear windows. The match itself looks pretty good, keeps the car looking stealthy, which is kind of what I was going for. But I do have one complaint. It's my own fault. The shop that I went to wasn't the best. When the windows were up and everything was curing, it didn't look that bad until you put the window down a little bit. Looks fine, the cut seems all right, and then over here in the corner, I'm really nitpicking with this because I'm a little OCD, but That bothers me. Why couldn't you just make it uniform all the way across? Also on the passenger side, see that little guy right there? There's a hair underneath the tint. Really not too stoked about that, but what are you gonna do? The shop supposedly has a lifetime warranty, but it's really not worth my time to go back just to fix those little things. That was just something that I wanted to get done quick. I can't stand the fishbowl feel of a car without window tints on it. But I have a good tint guy in a city that I used to live in, so hopefully I can link up with him at some point and get these fixed. Then what was next? Probably the lift kit. The whole car has an 1.5 inch suspension lift from a company called Subtle Solutions. I did a whole install video on that as well as all of the other modifications, so if you want to check them out, I will leave links in the description down below. The lift itself seems really high quality, bringing the overall ground clearance of this car to somewhere upwards of 10 inches now. So I've got a ton of room for when I'm driving off-road or up in the mountains, but more importantly, it looks awesome. I'm a huge fan of the way these things look when they're lifted, and I planned on doing that from the start. While we're talking about the lift, we might as well talk about wheels and tires because that's what really completes the look. The wheels are 15-inch Method MR502s, and they're wrapped with BF Goodrich all-terrain tires. These are 235s by 75 by 15, which is actually a little bit wider of a tire than you could fit on the 17s. A lot of people ask about the road noise and how these tires handle. They handle great when it's dry. I'm even driving right now on some like slush and wet snow because it's starting to lay on the roads. And as you can tell, it's still pretty quiet. At highway speeds, now I'm doing about 55, 60 miles an hour, and they're still pretty quiet. Definitely not as quiet as stock, but for how aggressive they look, I really thought that they were gonna be a lot noisier. The tires are tried and true. They're definitely some of the best do-it-all type of tires out there. The car handled pretty good to begin with, and then with the lift and tires, you would think it would affect it. It would feel a little bit more top-heavy, but that's not the case. Now, I'm not gonna be throwing this thing into turns like I do in my STI, but it's really not that bad. In the wet snow and slush right now, I don't really feel it slipping a whole lot. Granted, there's not a whole lot of snow on the road, but fingers crossed, I'm hoping it snows like a good 3 to 6 inches. That way I can really test these things out today. When I installed the lift, wheels, and tires, I also put on the Rally Armor mud flaps. That is one modification that I did run into a little bit of an issue. In my opinion, they look really good, and they're definitely gonna be saving the paint in some future off-road adventures. However, there is a little bit of a clearance issue with the front tires. If you're running the same tire, wheel, and mud flap setup, you're gonna find that when you're backing up in reverse and you turn the wheel to about 50% lock, you're gonna find that it rubs. What I did to combat this was I took a box cutter and cut out the inside of the flap just a little bit. It trimmed it so it doesn't rub as bad, but it does rub a little bit. Here's the car in reverse. Let's see if you can hear it. Hear it squealing a little bit. Like I said, it's not terrible. If I turn the wheel just a little bit past whatever lock I was at there, it's gonna be fine. I'm learning to live with it, but maybe there's some other brands out there that won't cause that issue. Now, speaking of the tires, I'm at a gas pump right now. Let's talk about the most asked question. What is your miles per gallon like with these tires? I've been keeping track of everything on my phone. This is gonna be my 5th time filling up with these wheels and tires. I also have what kind of driving that I was doing when I was getting those specific miles per gallon. So let's fill up quick and see what it comes to. All right, all filled up, 13.51 gallons. Now there's a conversion that you have to do with this. Since the tires are bigger, the odometer is actually gonna be off. Also, the heads up display where it shows your supposed miles per gallon, that's gonna be wrong as well. Right now I'm at 360.3 miles. Now I did the conversion of the tire sizes and their diameters. 1 mile on the stock tire is roughly 1.05 miles on these tires. So that means at 60 miles an hour, you're roughly doing 62, 63 miles per hour. I'm gonna take the 360.3 times 1.05, 378, 315 divided by 13.51. So this tank of gas, I was getting 28 miles per gallon. That's really not that bad. That was a little bit of a mix between driving back roads, driving back and forth to work, and then highway driving. I also have different totals, the first one being when the car was still in its break-in period. It was a mixture of driving, but I was also driving up in my mountain land, so really slow over rocks and mud and things like that. I was getting 24.07, and then after break-in period, 26.61. Then again, driving up in the mountain, in the mud and rocks, 24.58. After that, 26.89, and then just now, 28 even. So all of those up divided by 5, 26.03 is the grand total. So those numbers aren't completely accurate. I was rounding to the nearest hundredth, but 26 miles per gallon, that's really not that bad for all the different type of driving that I do. My STI never sees anywhere near that unless I'm filling up on the side of the highway, hopping on, and then doing 65 until I run out of gas. So those are the current totals. I don't foresee it changing too much, but I can check back in the future and let you guys know if anything is different. Next on the list was the SSD light bar and the Hella 500 series driving lights. Now, I'm not gonna lie, one of the main reasons why I put these on the car is because I think they look really cool. But other than aesthetics, I actually find myself using these all the time. Whenever I'm driving around back roads like this at night, I make sure I have the covers popped off and these things turned on. When I first put them on, I had them angled a little bit too low, but after a little bit of adjustment, these things are right on the money. Doing this just for reference, I know video really isn't gonna do it justice, but this is what the lights look like. What you're looking at right now is the low beams. This is the low beams with the fog lights on. This is the high beams, and then this is the high beams with the driving lights on. Now, like I said, video really isn't doing this justice, but if you see it in person, you'll definitely know how significant the lights actually are. A lot of people have asked why I didn't go with an LED light bar, and that's simply because the headlights aren't LED. An LED light bar with the white lights would kind of clash with the typical halogen headlights, so that's why I went with the style that I did. Here it is again with the light bar off and the light bar on. I really wish the video could pick up just how bright these things are. One more thing just for reference, we probably have about 3 to 4 inches down here now. I was out ripping around in an asphalt parking lot earlier and I could not get the car to slide at all. I know these all-terrain tires do have good ratings, but I really wasn't sure how well they would perform in the snow. I can definitely say that these things perform great. I even pulled the e-brake and I just could not get the car to actually slide like my STI would. So Goodrich all-terrains, big thumbs up from me. They turned out great, the wiring works well, and they're getting more use than I thought they were originally going to. Then there's the Racing tow hooks. Not much that I can say about them except they do look really good. I'm really digging the red accents all over the car, including the TS sticker on the back. I haven't had to use them yet, but if the snow keeps up, there might be a chance that I would use them tonight, but I'm hoping I don't have to actually use them. So that about sums it up. Not much more that I can say. I really like the car itself. I like all the modifications that I've done to it, and I'm looking forward to hopefully go on some adventures in this thing in the near future. If I left anything out that you guys are still curious about, feel free to leave any questions in the comments down below. And if you like this video, leave a thumbs up on it. It doesn't mean much to you, but it really helps me out. So that being said, if you are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe because I make new videos every week. That is going to be it for today. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.